in this tutorial we are going to create an app in App Inventor which lets us control an NXT robot. So the UI of the app will look like this. We will have a button on the top, and when we click on that button, it will give us a list of available NXT robots, and when we select any one of those, that robot will be connected. So the second button from the top, that will let us disconnect from the connected robot. Then we will have these navigation buttons. This green button on in the middle, that's gonna let us move our robot forward. The left turn button will let us turn our robot to the left. Similarly, the right turn button will let us turn our robot to the right, and then we have this large stop button. Whenever we click on this stop button, it's gonna stop the robot. So let's go ahead and start a new project. And the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to create the UI. So I'm going to name this project NXT controller, and the very first button that we had was the button for selecting the NXT robot to connect to. So that's actually not a button, that's a list picker. So we're going to drag a list picker. We are going to set the text to connect to a robot. We are going to change the width to fill parent. The next thing that we had was a button to disconnect from a connected robot. So we are going to drag a button now. We are going to rename it to disconnect button. We are going to change the text of that button to disconnect, and we are going to change the width to fill parent as well. And then we had all the navigation buttons. For the navigation buttons, the top three were left turn, go, and right turn. We are going to place those side by side. Hence, I'm going to drag an horizontal arrangement. I'm going to change the width to fill parent. Then I'm going to drag three buttons inside this horizontal arrangement. The first one is going to be my left turn button, so I'm going to rename it left button. I'm going to change its height to 100 pixels, and I'm going to change its width to fill parent, and I'm going to change its text to left. I'm going to drag a second button and place that within my horizontal arrangement as well. I'm going to call this go button. I'm going to change the width to fill parent again. I'm going to change the height to 100 pixels. And I'm going to change the text to go. Additionally, I'm going to change the background color to green. I'm going to add the third button, which is for the right turn, within this horizontal arrangement as well. And I'm going to make similar changes. I'm going to rename the button right button. I'm going to change the width and height to fill parent and 100 pixels respectively. And I'm going to change the text to right. Finally, we are going to have a button for stopping our robot. I'm going to make this button, so I placed this button outside the horizontal arrangement towards the bottom. I'm going to change the color to red. I'm going to change the text to stop. I'm going to change the width to fill parent, and I'm going to change the height to 100 pixels. Now these are the visible components of my UI. In order for us to connect to the robot, we also need a Bluetooth, because that's the mode using which we are going to connect to the robot. So I'm going to go to connectivity, drag a Bluetooth client. I'm also going to drag an NXT drive block from within my Lego Mindstorms. So that's another non-visible component that we need to move our robot. Now after I have added this NXT drive component, we need to come to this properties under NXT drive on the very right column, and we need to select this Bluetooth client. So we're basically saying that this NXT drive component is going to use this Bluetooth client component to connect to our robot and make it move or turn or stop. So this basically completes my UI. So in our blocks, the first thing that we need to do is have options to connect to one of the many available robots. So we added this list picker to be able to connect to one of the robots. Now as we already know, a list picker lets us select one of the items from a list of items. So when we click on the list picker button, the first thing that happens is this list picker that before picking event is triggered. So over here, what we want to do is we want to set all our list picker options to all the available robots. So I'm going to select this list picker.elements block and place that within the before picking. Then I'm going to go to my Bluetooth client and I'm going to select the Bluetooth client.addresses and names block and placed that over here. So in a sense, what we are doing is when we touch the list picker button, it's going to look up all the available Bluetooth devices and it's going to display that as a list of items. So when we select one of the Bluetooth robots, what we want to do is we want to connect to that robot. So now I'm going to drag a list picker.after picking, and once we have made a selection as to which robot we want to connect to, all we need to do is we want to connect to that robot. So now as you can see, this Bluetooth client 1.connect requires an address to connect to. So since we have already made a selection as to which robot we want to connect to, we are going to go to list picker, we are going to go to selection. So this tells us which item from the list of items we selected, and we are going to use that as the address of the block that we want to connect to. Now since you can see that this connect block needs to plug into another socket, what we are going to do is we are going to go to this control and we are going to drag this evaluate but ignore result, and we are going to plug this Bluetooth.connect into that and plug the whole thing into list picker.after picking. So basically for our top button, so this very top button, that's a list picker, when we click on that button, the before picking event is triggered, and the before picking event looks up for all the available robots and shows me that as a list of items. Once I select one of those robots from that list, the list picker.after picking event is triggered, and at that point, whatever selection we made, that robot is the one we connect to. So this lets us connect to one of the robots. Now of course, I'm going to collapse these blocks to make some more room. The next thing we want to do is we want to be able to disconnect from the connected robot. So the disconnect button is for that. So when we click on the disconnect button, what we want to do is we want to disconnect from the robot that we are currently connected to. So for that, we need to go to Bluetooth client again and drag the disconnect block. So this lets us disconnect to from the connected robot when we click the disconnect button. Finally, for the navigation buttons, what we will do is we will call this NXT drive dot start, NXT drive dot stop, all these kinds of methods. So when we click on the go button, what we want to do is we want a robot to move forward. So for that to happen, we need this NXT drive dot move forward indefinitely. Now we'll have to specify a power. Usually the value 70 is a good power to start with. The power also depends on the battery level. So you might want to start with the value 70 and then change that value a little bit and see what works best for your robots. So similarly, when I click on my left button, I want to turn left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to again go to my NXT drive 1. I'm going to select the turn counterclockwise indefinitely and again set the power to 70. Similarly, for the right button, I'm going to make my NXT drive move clockwise indefinitely with power 70. Now, for my stop button, let me quickly go back to Designer. Notice this was my stop button and I forgot to rename it. So I'm going to go ahead and rename this stop button. So when I click my stop button, what I want to happen is I want my robot to completely come to a stop. So for that, I'm going to go to an NXT drive and drag this NXT drive.stop and place that within my stop button. So that completes my app, and now we are going to test this out.